Okay, so you know what, Scott? It says it's live streaming, but it's not.
Yeah, I know. Okay, something's happening, but it may just be
Yeah, but
signaling that we're starting.
um, anyways, I'll just report this again,
Okay.
and I'll make sure to put um a message in our lounge for the people to come in. And we do have a lot of people in the waiting room already, so
Okay. Yeah.
maybe I'll admit them at sharp. So
Okay, that sounds great. Hey, Fred.
Just got back from flying with the drone club
Oh, fun.
down at the beach.
Oh, very fun. Yeah. Hi to Chris and Detlef. Wow, we got
How
a
you doing?
lot of people coming in today. Hi to Jean and Susan and Deborah, Maryland. Lynn again. Hi, Lynn.
I was going to say good morning, but it's afternoon.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's good morning to us here in California, so thank you.
Okay. Uh, and okay, and hi to Paramjit and Danya and Janice and Kathy. And Marilyn. Okay. I'll give it a couple of minutes for everybody to pop in here. Hi, Sandra. Just want to let everybody know that my colleague Kim is here and can help you out with any issues you might be having with Zoom or any other kind of technical problems that are interfering with you enjoying the class. So please let us know if you run into anything. She can also help me monitor any questions that might be coming in the chat. Also, if you are in the lounge and you'd like to join us here in the live studio, just hit that join Zoom button. Love to see you here with us. And I'll give it just another minute and then we'll get started. Okay.
Scott?
Yeah. Yeah, Detlef.
Hi, Photo Pills has a free class tomorrow. I think about noon Eastern time for using filters and long exposure landscape photography. And I put a link to it in the on the
Facebook
page.
group.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So it's only 1 day notice, but
Yeah.
that's all they usually give.
Okay. Well, that's good. I don't have a class at noon tomorrow, so I might be able to check that out.
So, well, let's put it this way. It's Madrid time, 7 p.m. Madrid time.
Ah.
And you guys changed, so I think I figured it out right.
Yeah. I can't keep track this time of year.
Yeah, it's 6 hours for Houston to the continent, so it's 5 hours for you, Scott, I think.
Yeah.
Until they change, and then it'll be 7 hours for me and 6 hours for you.
Then I think I added instead of subtracting. You better check that time.
Okay.
Gets me confused every time.
Oh, me too. Me too. Yeah. Okay. looks like we've got a good crowd today, which is great. This is a new venture, I guess, in the photography curriculum on Get Set Up. But I think it's Sunday, the 20th, is World Storytelling Day. So that's what prompted this idea about telling stories through photography. And so I'm going to be sharing a lot of pictures today, but I want to leave lots of time for open discussion about this, hoping that I can repeat this class. Well, actually, it's not even a repeat, but just have a second phase of it next month, where some of us, based on what we go over today, might be inspired to put together a photo or a collection of photos that they might want to share with the group to tell their own story. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what we can talk about today, some things I'm hoping that can come out of this for you, is just some direction on the stories you think you might like to tell with your photographs. I know a lot of you I see 2-3 times a week at the various photo groups. So I know how avid of photographers you are, but maybe you want to start really doing something with a message in it. Talk about spotting stories in the making that you can illustrate with your photography, ultimately creating some pretty provocative photos and photo essays. And I'm just going to stop there and see if anybody, I'm curious what brought people here today. Anything anybody wants to share about what interested them in this topic? Yeah, Sandra.
After taking the Canva class, I do a lot of journals and portfolios for people. So I thought this would help. Also, I make a lot of books for myself and books about my house, because the process that I've gone through to make it mine. And also I have a big garden book, and I start taking pictures. As soon as I start turning the soil, I take a picture of myself going to greenhouses and places like that. And also difficult sewing sequences that I have on my embroidery machine. I'll pass with that.
Okay, great. A lot to tell stories about there. Yeah. Yeah, Leslie.
Hi, Scott. I hope you can hear me okay. Zoom has been naughty with me today.
Okay, I can hear you well.
So for whoever was just speaking, Canva has a storyboard in it. So if you just go into Canva and search for storyboard, I found that to be very helpful. I was trying to develop a presentation, and so I just went and found some photos to stick in a storyboard and then wrote my little notes and did a couple iterations of that. So I would like to do something similar for the cookbook that the heritage cookbook I'm doing for my family, just to kind of have a new way to look at our stories.
Yeah. I know Leslie and I have talked about that before, so that's a great story to tell. Yeah. Anybody else? No. Okay. All right, Sandra, did you have? I saw your hand raised.
It's just something quick that tomorrow at 2:30 Eastern time is your class on Canva.
Yeah, that's
and no
right.
matter
Thank
what's
you.
going on, I'm going to be there.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a candle workshop tomorrow. So Ruby, yes, I heard.
Yeah,
you.
I was just gonna say, I had a photography career when I lived in Atlanta, and I went to school at Georgia Tech, and I had a photography class, and we had to create these scenes to make a whole story. That was the most enjoyable time of my photography, really. I really enjoyed it. It was almost like we was directing a film.
Yeah.
And, we're the directors and we're telling them what to do and all that, but I really enjoyed it. So I just came to this class just for the memories. I can't get out there like I used to, but and maybe if there's something a story I can create that doesn't have me going all over the place, maybe I can come up with something.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds great. Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk a little about doing this then. So there's that famous idiom, a picture paints 1,000 words. That's actually a quote. I think from I can't remember the name of the person, but he was a famous newspaper man. What photo storytelling is, I had a hard time defining it. So it's kind of, this is sky's the limit on this in terms of storytelling, but it's essentially using still images to indeed tell a story. It can be a series of pictures, it can be a single image, and what it's ultimately aiming to do is affect our emotions or our intellect, our curiosity. And those emotions that we try that are great to arouse with our photography include elation, anger, curiosity, sadness, amusement. It's great to laugh at funny pictures, and awe. Also a lot of famous photos, in fact, historic photos, have really motivated or mobilized people into some kind of action, or actually changed the course of history, to be a little, that may sound hyperbolic, but in some cases that actually has happened. And it also just creates a personal connection between you and the people viewing your photos. Now, sometimes the message you're trying to get across may not be really evident, and that's okay. You're the artist. How many times have you looked at an abstract painting or listened to the lyrics of a song and not really been able to understand what the artist is trying to get across? It's provoking people to think and wonder. So I want to just talk about a few photos actually, that I think fall in that category of telling stories, but also being very influential. And this one is by Lewis Hine. It's not his most famous photograph depicting child labor, but it is very much like the one that he is most noted for. And this is called The Cotton Mill Girl. And he shot this in 1909. Lewis Hine worked for the National Child Labor Committee and was going around. He was actually kind of lying a little bit to gain access to some of these factories so he could shoot these pictures. I don't know what lie he told, but he was able to document a lot of the child labor, and his work led to some changes in child labor law, basically cut it in half over the decade of 2010 or 1910 to 1920. And then, of course, we all know this photo by Dorothea Lange, shot in 1936, woman and her children in the Dust Bowl. This really came to be one of the biggest illustrations of the Great Depression. It's just an iconic shot. And there are some others that have told stories and also really led to some change, or at least heightened public awareness. One of them, and some of these I did not put in here, number one, because I couldn't find I could not find on any kind of Creative Commons site. So listed them here, but I will include a link where you can see some of these depicted. One, of course, is the kiss from 1945. That is the picture of the sailor kissing the nurse in Times Square when we declared victory over Japan in World War II. The Black Power salute. I don't know how many of you remember that. That is from the 1968 Olympics. And that really raised awareness of racial injustice, because these two sprinters who won medals raised their hands in a fist power salute. They were booed, but they basically set the standard for athletes making a statement beyond just their sport. And you're seeing a lot of that today. The Kent State shooting, of course, that picture defined a whole generation of youth fighting the war. The Terror of War by Nick Ut, that you will recall shows the children running from that napalm bombing. And the fire escape collapse. I don't know how many people remember this, but this was shot in 1975. It was a picture of a woman and a young child, preschooler, falling from a collapsing fire escape. It was a controversial picture. It did get published in the news. It created a lot of debate among photographers and journalists about when you're crossing the line in covering news, and in particular doing photojournalism. But it led to some major reforms in construction standards for fire escapes. And then, of course, there's the famous Afghan girl, which was on the cover of National Geographic back in 1984. That's just a portrait, but boy, did that speak volumes. And then the Starving Child and Vulture. This was a photo shot in Africa in 1993 to show just the plight of starving children there. Okay, so what is photo storytelling? It cuts across just about any kind of genre you can think of. There's travel, photojournalism, of course, candids and portraits. You can tell a story through a portrait, depending on how you set it up. Nature shots, I'll have a few examples of that. Event photography. You can tell a story through just a series of shots at a wedding, at a festival, or a march of some sort. There's commercial photography. That's usually trying to tell a story that will inspire you perhaps to buy something. And then just photo illustrations. And I'll have a couple, 3 examples of that, where it's, maybe a photo composite of some sort, but you're basically doing a little bit of manipulation in order to convey a message of some sort. And what you can be telling is just a day in the life. It can be a story about a journey you're taking, either literally or physically, or literally or figuratively, I'm sorry. An event, of course, or a series of events, or a composite that sends a message, as I just said. So it does not have to be, when we're talking about storytelling in photography, we're not necessarily talking about that complete narrative of a beginning, middle, and end. It can be completely open-ended. And that might be the difference from reading a story, so to speak. And all you need is something to take a picture with and a message that you might want to convey. And sometimes you won't see that message until after you've taken the picture. So I've had that happen plenty of times where I've shot the picture and realized that there's a story in that picture. And I've seen that from some of the photography groups. As you know, we share stories behind the photos that we share every week. And so sometimes we're surprised at what people are interpreting from those photos, but we seem to be telling a story with those. So I just wanted to start showing some examples. I'll take a break here. I've got a mix of photos from other photographers, and I've thrown a few in here of my own. But here are just moments in time that really tell some kind of story. Here you're seeing a group of guys performing somewhere. I don't know where exactly this is. I kind of suspect it might be somewhere in the Bay Area. And here you've got one that's just kind of a cute picture of a child who's not enjoying his birthday, obviously. Here's another one that will probably arouse different emotions in different people. Some people may immediately get vertigo looking at this or turn away, but just because it's such a big leap. But it looks like this guy is pretty gleeful about making this big jump off of the cliff. This one really resonated with me because I was a cross-country runner when I was in high school and did some competitive running after school as well. And I'm just looking at this guy's face and seeing the look on it and remembering the thoughts that went through my head when I was in races like this, just looking around me to see who's pulling ahead of me. And where I am in the pack. There's a little bit of strategy that goes into some of these races. So that it's just a simple picture of some runners in some kind of competitive event, but created a story for me. And here's one that just illustrates the experience of somebody experiencing homelessness. And I want to mention here too, the power of a photo over text or statistics to really make a difference. I'm sure most of you have seen or remember the shot of and I don't want to show because I think it's upsetting to a lot of people. The shot of the little boy washed up on the beach, the Syrian boy, who's, I think that was 2015. And there was a photojournalist there who shot that picture. There was a study done on that later. Looking at it was a scientist at the University of Oregon, and he wanted to really examine how a single image might motivate people, might arouse their compassion far more than statistics, numbers. And at that point, when that photo was published, the Syrian refugee crisis had been going on for a few years. And the world was largely indifferent to it. And I shouldn't say indifferent, but it just wasn't front and center for a lot of folks. And then you started seeing images like that, and especially that picture, donations to relief groups shot up dramatically after that photo was published. So that is the power of the image. And that is what stories, telling stories with a single image or a series of images can do.
Scott,
Yeah.
the pictures that you mentioned beforehand,
Mhm.
some of them I mean, I knew every one of the pictures
Yeah.
that you talked about. One of them happened on my 21st birthday. That was a Kent State shooting.
Yeah.
And I remember when that happened. You want to think about what happened to the people that are in there. There's three people that come to mind. The green-eyed girl from
Yeah.
Afghanistan. National Geographic actually followed up to see what she's doing now.
Yeah.
The little girl in Vietnam that got hit by the napalm, she
Yeah.
lives in California.
Yeah.
And what was the very last one that you had? Oh, the baby and the vulture.
Yeah.
The photographer picked the baby up on the way out.
Yeah.
And but you look at those and they show people in desperation, and you wonder what happened.
Yeah.
So some of these things do have good endings.
Yeah. 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 Thanks, Detlef. Those are follow-up stories to tell about stories within photos. Yeah. And I know Leslie was asking about where I found some of the photos, some of those historic photos. I went to Wikimedia Commons, which is a place where you can find public domain photos, and some of those older photos are in the public domain now, and you are free to use them. So. Okay. So this is one that I shot several years ago. It's in Yosemite National Park, and it's just a little series here of this rock climber. And, I just capture him in a moment trying to climb this rock. And he stops for a minute, looks down to see how far he's come, and then he continues on. Very simple story, but it's showing me somebody's experience, somebody's journey. And this is a collection of photos I took at the March for Science, which I believe was in 2017. And I actually did these for work. I was working for a scientific organization at the time, and so went out and shot it that day. It was a miserable day weather-wise. It was pouring down rain, but you can see here people were everywhere were wearing these knit brain hats. You saw signs, and I don't know if you can, if anybody caught it here, but this is Bill Nye the Science Guy. I was able to do a zoom in on him marching at the front of the march with a group of young people. And this is from the 2008 presidential inauguration, 2009, I should say. And my wife and I were able to go down to the National Mall for that. It was kind of a harrowing experience getting down there because I think that was a record attendance for an inauguration. And so we took the metro down, had to unload at one point because the metro was overloaded, hopped on a bus to get there. But I put, I caught this pile of Time magazines that somebody was selling and just shot those, and then just shot people on the mall or walking toward the mall for what was a historic event, our first African-American president. And here's another collection of photos I did. These are pretty simple, just snapped with an iPhone. but this is in Holland. We had gone there for a wedding of some friends who live there, and stayed there and visited some cities with a bunch of other people who were attending the wedding. And this is in Delft. And I'm just showing people trying to do what is very customary there, and that is eating these, I think they're raw, some kind of fish. I don't know if it's herring or what, but I don't know my fish very well. But at any rate, I just put these together. This last one is a great story for me. This is my friend Jeff, and you'll see him getting ready to try to do this. He never could bring himself to swallow that or bite into it at all. So, you know, this is a story for me to remember, and I've got it captured in photographs. So here is a guy that I've been following, who I think is brilliant at telling stories of where we are in a given period in history. And he has taken many photos of signs that really document the years 2020, 2021, and 2022. In fact, this one was shot, I think, in 2022, as people were really getting kind of fed up with some of the COVID restrictions. But he's just illustrating a lot of what we're living through right now. And he's done that in other ways. Here is another one. Just a couple of stories showing this guy who he says is a storyteller, I believe in Savannah, Georgia, having to play his trumpet with his face covering still on. And here's another of children just holding up signs in support of Ukraine right now. So these are pretty new, obviously. But these are really telling a story about a time in history that, you know, 20 years from now, people will look back on these and learn about what was going on in the early 2020s. And just on the lighter side, you've got pictures like this, these two bison going at it while people are stuck in traffic or just stopping to gawk. This one is of my nephew, Colby. He is now an adult, but I took this picture when he was here visiting when he was little. Just the look on his face tells a story. And that story is simply that he's not digging this cotton candy for some reason. He's just wrinkling his nose and not thrilled with it. And this one I shot in Buenos Aires. And this was a very early version of the iPhone. I was there in 2011. And I think this might have been an iPhone 4 or earlier. But so it's kind of grainy. But this is in the Recoleta Cemetery. And this is like a little city in and of itself almost. And some of the most noteworthy or famous Argentinians are interred here, including Eva Perón. And I saw this picture just spoke to me. So I just shot this real quickly. But this guy was just cleaning essentially the walls of these different burial properties. And it just kind of to me, it tells a story of some poor people having to continue to carry on the legacy of the rich and famous. And this one I love, just in that it brings up so many thoughts in my mind, just by her looking out into an open space here, but she's obviously graduating from something, and she's just kind of looking out into the future. Yeah. So I thought I'd stop there, see if anybody has any reactions to what I've shared so far, any thoughts, any ideas that are coming to you about what you would like to do.
The cemetery one, I saw it more out of respect, keeping the burial place clean. We have a tendency of not doing that, and our cemeteries get run down or marked on and whatever. And I saw it more as a respectful thing.
And
I
that's
like
good. Go ahead.
Sorry. I really love them. I mean, you know, to look at photographs and have them tell a story of something.
Well,
it's just really special. I'm sorry, my dog is barking.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. And Chris, I'm glad you shared your reaction to that photo in the cemetery, because I think that really illustrates the way I took it and the way you reacted to it. Really is important, because people are going to take a different story out of a different out of the same photograph, and that's okay. That's great.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know, especially because the world right now is being so disrespectful to people, you know, humans and the world itself. It was it hit me as, wow, look at this guy. He's taking the time to do that. And we don't know whether he's a worker or whether he was a loved one or whether he just had respect for the person or persons he was cleaning. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting what a photo can do, you know?
Yeah. Sandra.
In that science march too, that gentleman that you had mentioned, that was kind of the key person, the endearing look that he had toward that young man really gave a lot of insight into his character. He was just really charmed by that boy, and that kind of tickled me a little bit.
Yeah. That was an exciting day. It was nice to see so many young people come out for that. Yeah. Okay. So here is one that I shot in Buenos Aires. And this was in a neighborhood. My wife and I were walking around. There were a lot of street musicians there, street vendors. And this woman was sitting, just kind of entertaining people with her little makeshift drum kit here. And she had her little cup here for donations. I had my camera and immediately pointed it at her, and she looked at me. She was not happy, and she showed me this sign, which is funny. I mean, it's a humorous photo in a lot of ways, but it was also a message, and that is that I am a person. Don't treat me like I'm just some entertainment for you, and I'm trying to earn money here, whatever message she was trying to get across. But I realized at the time I was walking around taking pictures of people pretty disrespectfully. And that this hit home for me. This was in Beijing, and it's just kind of a day in the life of rickshaw drivers in the city, and just a collection of photos I pulled together from there.
It looks like it's a slow day for rickshaw drivers.
Yeah, it kind of was. Yeah, in fact, there was one. So this photo, there is a story behind it. There was a big argument going on between two rickshaw drivers over a customer and who got the customer. And these guys were all just kind of, well, this guy was asleep, but this guy was just, these other three were just kind of gawking at it. Yeah, it was a slow day for them. Yeah. And, any kind of march or demonstration, there are a lot of stories that can come out of that. Here you see just from a Black Lives Matter protest. And then you also have just a family gathering and a story that comes out of there. Obviously, they are celebrating the birthday of an elder in the family. So this one I found in a collection online, and at first I thought it was some kind of tragic moment of some sort, and thought, what is this depicting? And then I read, I looked at it a little more closely. This is somebody being baptized, and she's crying she's joyful, and those are tears of joy. And people do not have to be in photos to tell a story. I think sometimes we feel like, you've got to have a character in the story, and you don't. I can look at this, and this tells me a story of road decay. And think about it. We've been talking about infrastructure problems in this country. Here's a great way to illustrate that story right here. Whether that's what the photographer intended or not, I don't know, but that's what occurred to me when I saw it. And of course, I don't know how many of you have been hearing about all of the problems with bottled water, and how the bottles are really not recycled very much, not nearly as much as we think, and they're piling up in places like this. So this definitely tells that story here.
We saw a lot of the photo on the left where the road is burned. The darkness could be burns, because what was happening with our forest fires here in California was it was going across the road and literally melting the asphalt. And that's what it reminds me of. Wow.
Okay. Okay. So that could very well be what that was too, for all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's amazing what people take, the stories that we create for ourselves just by looking at these images.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here's another just a moment in time, seeing a building being brought down. And then there are fun moments, even with wildlife. This owl obviously got confused about what his prey is supposed to be. And here's a tale of a struggle between a couple of gulls over a piece of food. So this photographer, Nick Fewings, told a story behind this photo. You look here and your suspicion right away is that this is either a street musician, this is their cup where they're collecting money, or person experiencing homelessness and asking for help. But what he, and indeed that's what it was, the latter. But what he said was particularly compelling to him is that the money collected in this cup was not worth the actual coffee that once filled this cup. And yeah, Leslie, I like that comment about the owl. Okay, here's one that is kind of fun. This guy decided he just wanted to play in the mud. At first, I thought maybe he just toppled over his handlebars, but his bike is actually hanging here. Here's another fun story. A very persistent squirrel going into the trash to dig out some food. This is from the 2011 Army-Navy game. And this speaks volumes too, just by the look on their faces. Navy obviously won. And you can just see the smiles and the elation among the players and staff there. So this is telling a story right away. I don't remember who won that game, but I can look at this and right away I know. And I mentioned photo illustrations. This would fall into that category, I think. Setting, and I don't know what message this photographer is trying to get across, but it's a newspaper on fire and there's some message
Hot off
there.
the press.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. That might be it. Yeah. Here's another one. I think the story here might be that it's hot. And this is one that I did. This is supposed to be a day in the life. Of course, I used some photo software to do this, but shows me reading, working on my computer and checking my email and texts on my phone. So not much of an interesting story, but that hits that day in the life element I was talking about. So I'm just wondering what ideas come to people's minds about what they want to do based on some of the photos I showed, some of the examples there. Anybody want to share? Yeah, Sandra.
I thought it was interesting. Well, let me lower this hand. I thought it was interesting that that you don't have to have words, and then to be able to key in on those things that happen in life, especially in nature and outside my house,
Yeah.
to capture things that speak for themselves, and then how people's learning styles will help them to interpret what it is that they see. And there can be so many different thoughts about different kinds of pictures. That was very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sandra. Yeah. How about others? Detlef, you always have something interesting to say. I've been waiting for you to.
Nothing interesting this time. I'm still thinking about those pictures that you were talking about. You just put the title there, but I know every one of them.
Yeah.
I can imagine it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can see how people were placed in the photograph. A couple of other pictures that are, in addition to those, that when you hear about it, you know exactly, it comes back to mind. And I think a lot of those pictures are just pure luck that somebody was there at the exact right moment to get that picture. And I think that maybe some of them were just as surprised at what they got as we are to see the picture.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, a good example of that, Detlef, is the guy who shot the Kent State shooting picture.
Yeah.
And he was a student. Yeah. And just was happening. I think he was a photojournalism student. So he had his camera with him and shot that, but that ended up on the front page of the New York Times.
Oh, that was all over the world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was on Time Magazine. It was everywhere.
Yeah. But
and I think that was like you say, I think he was a student there. He wasn't planning on doing it. It was a grab shot.
Right.
You know.
Exactly.
But we're lucky these days that we all have cell phones with us now. And back in those days, you had to have a camera.
Yeah.
And not everybody carried a camera all the time, but everybody has a camera with them. Or I say everybody, but most people are carrying a camera with them nowadays.
Yeah.
And can grab something like that.
Yeah.
You just have to be ready.
Of something that I would like to do. You know, I'm a housing advocate, and there's a lot of seniors in Seattle losing their homes because, you know, they're being displaced because of upzoning and development and all that. So, you know, I have some images of houses being destroyed and their houses being rebuilt. And those are good images, but I like one, you know, the lady by Dorothy Lang, I would love to have one of somebody that actually moving and worried with the worry that comes with that on her face. And, you know, you got me.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be a powerful picture.
Yeah. The only thing is, you know, I'm older now, you know, and I just don't get around to those places like that. But I'm going to figure out a way to, you know, to get that shot, because that would make a real powerful statement for what I'm trying to do, for me fighting against it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, more power to you, Ruby. That sounds like a very noble venture.
You know, Susan said something important. That we all, through our phones, carry cameras with us now all the time. And I think there will be some pictures that are going to be coming out of this war happening down the road from me here that will become world famous too. You know, I mean, I'm looking at what I see coming out of there, and the destruction is from the time that I was a kid. That's what Berlin looked like.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, and every picture I see just gets to me. You know, we're getting about 2,500, between 2,000 and 3,000 refugees here every day.
Yeah.
Ooh,
from Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's you think that this kind of thing had long disappeared, that something like this couldn't happen again. And it's horrific what is happening. But I think just like the pictures with that little girl in the napalm, or the soldier getting shot by the general in the street in
Right.
Saigon,
Right.
there's going to be pictures like that that are
Yeah.
going to be coming out of this conflict too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and a good example of that, I mean, think about Tiananmen Square, and the
Yeah.
famous shot of
The guy with the tanks, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or for that matter, and this is video, not a still
There was
photograph.
already a shot, I
George
think, in
Floyd.
Ukraine of somebody in front of a tank.
What was that, Fred?
I think I saw a shot already of somebody in front of a tank